Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. I'm Caitlin Smith, your webinar host from Main Street ROI. We're very excited to be having another of our Master Your Marketing series where we bring together leaders in the digital marketing world to bring you great content focused on ways you can grow your business. This series is sponsored by all of our partners, Likeable Local, SpyFu, Active Demand, WooRank, and Optimizer. For today's webinar, we're excited to welcome back Mike Roberts, President and Founder of SpyFu. The presentation should be about an hour long, so that way we can leave plenty of time at the end for a live Q&A session. Feel free to type any questions you have in the Q&A box along the way, and we'll try to get them answered during and then for sure after the webinar. As always, today's webinar will be recorded and we'll send out a replay video along with a PDF of the slides to everyone who has signed up. So if you get any calls or have work to do, don't worry, you're not going to miss a thing. With that, I'll turn the webinar over to Mike so he can get started.
Oh, thanks so much. It's great to be back. I am Mike Roberts. I'm the founder and let me see if I can get my slides working. The founder and CEO of SpyFu. You can reach me directly on Twitter at Mr. Spy, but also at SpyFu generally gets back much faster and more reliably because it's not me, and somehow I'm not the ideal person to communicate on Twitter or really anything. So if you're tweeting about this presentation, that's the right one to use, the at SpyFu, or you can tweet at me directly as well, and I sort of obsess. I'm also sort of active on Reddit. I'm Sporktopus. I guess you're not necessarily supposed to tell everyone your thing, but that's me. If you've never heard of SpyFu before, you can go to SpyFu and type in any website and see all the keywords that they rank on Google. Every keyword that they buy and every variation that they've ever run. You can see your competitors' best performing content, where they get their backlinks. You can track your keywords, and you can even manage the outreach of to influencers. The idea is that you can learn from your competitors. You can learn from their mistakes without having to suffer through them yourself, and you can take what's been successful for them and build from it. You may be sort of familiar with this sort of competitive keyword research space, but there's a couple of things that make us unique. Just sort of a little bit of a backstory. Before we invented SpyFu, there was no way to type in a website and see their keywords. That's our innovation, and so as a consequence, we've been doing it longer than anyone else. There was no SEMrush or Ahrefs, or back in the day there was like Keyword Spy. There's a whole bunch of competitors that have come and gone, but we've been collecting this sort of data for about 14 years, and as a consequence of that, we have the entire campaign history start to finish for over 99, about 99.5% of companies. As a quick example, if you think of like the company Groupon, been around for quite some time. We were actually collecting data about 6 years before they even became a company, and so you can see the very first ad or the very first present, the very beginning of all of their campaigns. On SpyFu, our mission is actually to level the playing field for small businesses and entrepreneurs, of agency owners and marketers. We're a bootstrapped company. I started the business out of my house with like $3,000 in the bank, and I built SpyFu, SpyFu's predecessor, which was GoogSpy, to help me spend the very limited resources that I had wisely. So I wanted to like spy on my competitors and see if they had any secrets that I had missed, and so the small businesses and entrepreneurs are really, my people, right? A lot of marketing tools and platforms that you see are sort of geared towards enterprise, or I like to think that we have all the features that you could possibly ever want, big company or small company, but the people, sort of the excitement of the startup and the scrappiness and the innovation of small business is where my personal passion is. And so we deliberately keep our price at a level that literally anyone can afford, and it's often like 1/10 of the cost of of our competitors. And we also make everything on SpyFu all you can eat. I'm not here to in any way sell you SpyFu. I just want to give you kind of a background of where we are, where we come from, and just as a general idea of who you're talking to. All right, so anyway, let's get started. First, I want to talk to you about the goals of the content. First, we're going to talk about the goals of the content, and we're going to try to, what are we trying to accomplish with the content in general, and each piece of content in particular. And then I'm going to talk to you about what a core keyword should be and the various ways to find them. Then I'm going to talk about how we translate that, those core keywords into content topics, and like what kind of content we want to create. And then we'll talk about how do we build that stuff, and then tracking it and improving it. It's a whole cycle, and I'm going to talk to you about tricks to improve your efficiency, and just sort of shortcut your way to productivity. These days, we're all sort of in this interesting COVID world, and so I want to make it so that you can execute and sort of almost like guerrilla market your way oftentimes, because I know that everybody's got different sort of time and resources at this point. So I've changed about 50 slides. So there's like, I have about 65 slides, and I think that 50 of them are brand new, just for this presentation. So let's get started. All right, so when you start, the first step is literally to ask the question, what is the goal of this content? Out loud. Like, what's the purpose of the content we're planning? You have to ask it out loud, because the thing is, pretty often, not everybody on the team has the same perspective. And it seems like an awkwardly dumb question to ask, so nobody asks it out loud. But there's some complexity to this. There's more than one right answer. Another way of asking what you want, another way of asking that, if you like want to sort of sound smarter but really be asking the same thing, is how will we measure the success of of this content? Which metrics will we use? Now you're asking the same thing, but you'll sort of feel smarter. The goal of the content isn't to generate traffic. It's not to create shares. It's not to get links. It's not to retarget. It's not to inform people. I mean, those might be things, but at best, those are your micro goals. At worst, they could be vanity metrics, right? So you have to have this conversation, even if it's just in your own head, to know the difference. Ultimately, your macro goal is to get more people to buy or sign up or to see ads. It's about money. Everything else could be a distraction, right? So just because the overall goal of your content marketing needs to have to do with money doesn't mean that every piece of content needs to be like optimized for conversion. In fact, it shouldn't. And that's why it's really important to ground yourself in the overall goal before you start planning. So yeah, like what they say is just build great content. That's what everybody says. Sometimes they add in the word really to drive that point home. Just create really great content. Cool, but no, great content has to do three things: get lots of traffic, be super authoritative and thought leaderish, and efficiently convert readers into buyers. And you can try to build every piece of content so that it does all those things well. But I think when you optimize for one, you sacrifice the others, and vice versa. I mean, you might be able to spend a ton of time building the perfect super content. And there are times when you'll want to do that. And sometimes it's a really great fit, like but realistically, a pretty small portion of your content, you're going to hit all three of those things at once. It's pretty rare. In general, building super content doesn't scale. It's hard to come up with these ideas, and by and large, it can be really frustrating. So here's what you do. Don't try to make each piece of content do all those things. Make each piece of content do one of those things really well. Put each piece of content in a bucket. Some of it needs to get traffic, and in this case, your metrics will be visitors and shares. And you can definitely leverage that traffic to build retargeting audiences and email lists, but your goal with the content isn't to convert or get backlinks. You'll definitely want to use that content to feed into your converting and authoritative content, but those aren't its goals. Your authoritative, thought leaderish content might be some of the best stuff you've ever written. But guess what? It's probably not going to get a ton of traffic. But that's okay. Its goal is to drive links and mentions. In this case, you're influencing the influencers with this stuff. The goal is to improve the overall authority of your site, not the individual page, but of your site, which will drive up the ranks of the rest of your content. Authority lifts all boats, right? Your primary metric for this are backlinks and mentions. And finally, your converting content is designed to convert browsers into buyers. I'm not necessarily talking about your product pages here, really. I assume that you've already created marketing pages. These would be for the keywords that are a ways down the funnel, targeting searchers that are ready to buy. So those are the 3 buckets that I recommend you put each piece of content into, keeping in mind that the overarching goal of your content plan is to create money. Again, the overall goal is to create money, and as a system of content, it does all those things. As a system, you have to have authoritative content that gets lots of traffic and converts. The system accomplishes all the goals, but each piece of content has its own goals and metrics. Okay, so now let's look at some tricks to finding your core keywords. And when I'm talking about core keywords, what I mean are the relatively broad topics that you want to rank on. I'll go into to how broad they should be in a minute. There's like a sweet spot that varies a bit depending on how authoritative your site is. But right now, I'm just going to talk to you about how you come up with them. I mean, this slide kind of says it here, but you don't need to worry about the long tail yet. We're just looking at the top level metrics. Okay. So the first way you get core keywords is what I call divine edict. They may come from your client. They may say, I want to rank on, wicker patio furniture. Okay, boom, add it to your list. You might be the business owner or in charge of in-house marketing. In any case, these are the keywords you can just kind of write down off the top of your head. They just are. They've always been. Okay. So you obviously put those in your spreadsheet. The next place you can look is where you already have traction. Which keywords do you already rank on? These are great momentum builders. Sometimes you can just improve the existing content or add supporting content and knock out some early wins. I'm going to go into a process a little bit later about how we improve existing content. It's a bit of a loop, and it's glorious in its simplicity, and it's proven. But you have to kind of hang on until the end, because obviously in our process here, this is the improvement cycle actually works its way at the end slide. So I guess that is to come. So anyway, momentum though is awesome, and it's motivating. And good places to find this stuff is Google Search Console. You can also use SpyFu or our competitors or whatever. Another great place is to look at your PPC campaign. So your Google Ads campaign is awesome because those are keywords that you're already paying for. The messaging is tested and they convert for you. If you could rank on them, not only could you save money, but more importantly, the organic results get more clicks than the ads, by and large. So you can justify your content marketing and maybe steal some budget. This is like one of the best places, realistically. Just knowing what the conversion rate is sort of gives you some information that you don't even have if you're looking at your Google Analytics, because you don't have that information. You don't have conversion information in Google Analytics for organic keywords anymore. I mean, it's been that way for probably most people's careers at this point, but there was a point in time when we all had it. Okay, so all those other 3 are looking at opportunities inside your business, stuff that's in your campaigns. But what about stuff that your company hasn't already thought of? what's working for your competitors that you might not even know about. So let's talk about competitors for a second, because it's kind of a subject that's near and dear to my heart. I have a lot of entrepreneur friends, and when I talk to them about their competitors, especially like like lawyer guys, they're always somebody that really annoys them. It's like, this guy's got his name plastered on a billboard and he's got his own racing team. He's a huge dick. What's he doing that I'm not, right? These are the competitors that you want to crush, right? And actually this whole competitors that you want to crush thing, it's honestly a sort of visceral impulse, which is probably a lot of what drives SpyFu's acquisition. And it's cool, crush that guy, right? Whatever. But the truth is, that billboard guy probably isn't doing anything all that impressive. Typically, your sort of direct in-market local competitor is probably not the best that there possibly is. The better competitor to look at are the ones that you admire, the ones that are doing content marketing, in this case, because we're looking at content marketing, really well. And they're probably not who you initially think of as your direct competitor. Of course, they could be. The competitor you want to crush might also be the one you admire, and if so, that's adorable. It's also ideal, but it's not that common. So as an example, Moz and Search Engine Journal and WordStream aren't SpyFu's direct competitors, but they all do a really good job at content marketing, and I admire their content marketing. I don't want to crush them. I admire them though. So what we can do is look at the entire keyword universe of these competitors and group those keywords into topics. And we can quantify each of those groups. To do that, we're basically taking the sum of all the long tail variations and see how many searches the overall topic represents. And just to be clear, the overall topic I'm talking about is a potential core keyword. On SpyFu, we've built this automatic grouping functionality into every tool. And if you don't see it yet, it's because we're like testing. We roll things out in phases to smaller groups. Anyway, it'll be there soon for you. But if you've got an external list, which most people probably keep their list in like a spreadsheet, and by the way, it's a good thing we're all working remote, because I just kind of discovered this thing the other day, and my ops team will probably physically murder me for bringing attention to this, but because I know this isn't a particularly easy thing for the system to do, but we have a new tool where you can paste in a list of keywords from anywhere, and we'll group and do all the roll-ups, all apparently for free. You can it also appends some data columns and search volume and click-through rate and mobile versus desktop and clicked versus non-clicked, etc. And you'd have to sign up to see those, but all this grouping stuff, as you can see, all the groups and roll-ups that you need are here for free, and you don't need a login. I was actually pretty surprised by that. I felt like I discovered a secret hack on my own site, but anyway, so that's there for you. I don't necessarily know that it'll be there forever. I guess it's possible that that we have too many people that use it and it overloads our system or something like that, but this is a pretty useful tool that's out there for you for free. So anyway, how big should a keyword be? Usually, nobody commits to answer this type of thing. Typically, you don't get any numbers out of people that are giving sort of presentations on how to build groups and stuff. So I want to give you some rules of thumb. And it does definitely depend, but I'm going to give you a bunch of rules of thumb. A core keyword should support about 3 to 10 pieces of content, or maybe about 10,000 words of written content potentially, if you think of it that way. And each piece of content should target about 300 to 3,000 searches per month. These are just sort of rules of thumb. Like if you're looking at the number of searches that something's getting, that's basically where you want to target your pieces of content. And by the way, it might make sense eventually to combine content into mega pieces, and that's definitely part of the improvement cycle. But you know, when you're building them, you build them as individual pieces, and you may eventually combine them. It's pretty common, but you don't necessarily need to know about that just yet. So anyway, 3 to 10 pieces of content targeting 300 to 3,000 searches per month each. So it's a pretty broad range, like 900 searches to 30,000 searches, but that's kind of the area you're targeting. About 5,000 searches maybe in the middle. If you're just starting out and have a low authority site, or if you're in a highly competitive niche, you may want to go a bit lower, right? So if you're, does that make sense? If you are new or have a low authority site, you're gonna like target a smaller audience, because you just aren't gonna necessarily, you want to make more content until you have higher authority. And if you built up some authority and your competition and keyword difficulty is a bit lower, you can target higher traffic core keywords. So how much content do you need? Well, basically, sort of roughly, if you want to figure out how many pieces are you going to need to write, add up all the search volume for all of your core keywords and divide by about 1,000, and that's roughly the number of articles you need to write. So I've got about 20 other slides that I cut out of the middle here that explain a whole lot more about how much content you need and how and when you get ROI, and whether you should create evergreen or timely content. And by the way, the answer is a mix of both. It's about a 4-to-1 ratio. Basically about 3 or 4 times as much evergreen as timely will get you to a break even on your content production. But anyway, I added those after the last slide. So there's like a question slide. And so if you keep going past it, you can actually see this sort of step-by-step process for calculating your ROI and evergreen and stuff like that. But I really wanted to make sure I spent enough time on creating topics from keywords and sort of this, the loop of the improvement loop, right? Because these are I got some pretty good shortcuts for that stuff, and I want to make sure that I don't spend too much time convincing you that there's ROI in content marketing. All right, so here we go. Here's one of the keywords I want to rank on. I've just sort of randomly come up with this. Grants for single mothers. It's got the right number of searches and a medium keyword difficulty. And actually, there's a lot more going on here. Keyword research has advanced quite a bit. The last presentation that I gave to this audience on this series was about advanced keyword research. So I'll refer you to that webinar if you look at the most recent webinars for a complete and in-depth look, but I'll just give you a quick refresh of what you're looking at. This is actually something that you get on SpyFu for free. You can do as many searches as you want on SpyFu for free and get this basic, not basic, but in-depth, this is sort of advanced information about keywords. So here's 2 keywords, both related to AirPods. One of them is how to clean an AirPods case, and the other one is Android AirPods, and they both get about the same number of clicks. But in every other way, they're polar opposites, and I'll walk you through this, right? So the how to clean AirPods gets 79% of people actually click on a result. Android AirPods, only 49% of people click on a result. That means that 51% of people do a search and don't click on anything on that result. The other difference here that's pretty important is that how to clean AirPods case is a very highly desktop driven search, very low mobile, right? So the ratio is pretty low there, versus Android AirPods is almost all mobile, very high mobile. The other difference is in the paid versus organic clicks. So Android AirPods, of the clicks that it does get, 43% of the clicks on a page are actually on ads versus 1% for how to clean AirPods case, which makes sense because who's really going to be advertising and spending, there's probably not very many ads on the how to clean AirPods case search result, and Android's AirPods is going to be a highly, transactional keyword, or at least a pretty transactional keyword. And it's going to be advertised on quite a bit. You see keyword difficulty is the same. Monthly search volume is actually quite a bit different, but the clicks is the same. So those are sort of the, a real quick tour of, sort of these different metrics that we're dealing with that aren't, the standard search volume and keyword difficulty that, has kind of been what we all have, been looking at for quite a few years. All right, so where were we? We're starting with the keyword. We've got the keyword, and then we're going to look at the SERP. So then we're going to look at the SERP for the actual keyword. And you could certainly look directly at the SERP in Google, because obviously that's not what I'm doing here. But I'm using SpyFu because it shows me the domain strength of each site. You could kind of estimate the domain strength, but we calculate it. I want to avoid the really strong domains, like obviously Wikipedia or Amazon or something. And generally, I want to get an understanding of what kind of content is ranking. Is it a list of grants or a guide for getting them? Is it video content? Are there product pages? Government websites. So I'm trying to figure out what's what on here. Other things that I sometimes want to avoid, and I certainly wouldn't want to duplicate, would be root URLs. So you can look at this thing and you see grants for -singlemothers.org. They're ranking, but it's their homepage that's ranking, so they're kind of they're selling out. So I'm not necessarily, it's not going to be as easy for me to just throw up a blog page to beat them. Let's see. Once I get a feel for it, I'm going to pick the ones that are ranked the best, that aren't super strong domains, that match the type of content Google thinks that matches the searcher's intent. And then I'm going to look quickly at other keywords that content ranks on. And then I'd actually look at the content itself. How good is it? How long is it? Can it be beaten? In this case, yeah. I mean, this is kind of trash. I actually feel sort of bad for single mothers who have to look at this crap. My eyes are sore. Realistically, I can barely read it. So that's the kind of best practice skyscraper way of doing this. But in a lot of cases, this is sort of daunting for a variety of reasons. Hard to start to just basically take a keyword and then look at other content and then just build something similar. I think it's not ridiculously intuitive. And so I'm going to offer you a couple shortcuts. My first shortcut is, so here's that same starting keyword, but broken down by all the questions people ask that are related to it, prioritized by search volume. So are there grants for single mothers to buy a house? What kind of grants can a single mother get? How to apply for Pell Grants for single mothers. So the idea is you just start writing answers to these questions. The article doesn't need to be FAQ style. These are just sort of built-in writing prompts. It's also kind of a way to approach a big authoritative piece of content in bite-sized chunks. Answer one question a day until you've answered them all and publish continuously. Publish every day that you answer a question. Just add the question into your content. To me, this is a much more approachable way to create content, and it can even help you scale your content production by tapping into internal expertise. Let me give you an example. So imagine you're actually doing this campaign and you know you have an internal subject matter expert on grants, but that person doesn't write content. Like, they don't like writing content. It's not their thing. If you ask them to write 1,500 words on grants for single mothers, like, I mean, it depends on your relationship with this person, but it'd certainly be fighting against their nature. But if you were to ask them, hey, are there grants for single mothers to buy a house? Asking for a friend. There's a pretty good chance that they'll give you a detailed response. You see what I mean? Like, not only is this approach more digestible as you're approaching it, it's a complete game changer for scaling your content production to like unlock expertise hidden inside your organization. So shortcut number 2, everything in my presentation is sort of predicated on this keyword research first approach. And yeah, that's definitely the best practice, but doing all that research and organizing the keywords is a meaningful amount of work, right? Work that you have to do before you create content. And I mean, I spent the last 15 years of my life making that process easier and more productive. And at this point, it's pretty streamlined, all things considered. But I'm a big fan of this new technique we've developed. It's like looking at your competitor's Google Search Console. You can see exactly which content is getting the most SEO traction, how much, and from which keywords. So it's basically a prioritized list of content for you to build and to build a better version. And you don't necessarily need to do keyword research up front, actually. You can just sort of start here and start building, and then the improvement cycle I'll talk to you about later will take care of the rest. So in this case, I filtered this down, so I'm only looking at blog articles, and you can do that sort of URL level filtering to any level. So you see what I'm talking about here? I typed in wordstream.com/blog into the search, and so all of these things are actually from their blog. There's no like content, there's no product pages or anything. And by the way, just like everything on SpyFu, the top 5 results are free, which, you know, seems like it's like, oh, well, it's not totally free, but you can do a lot of research with that actually, and I'll show you why. So you can zoom in on the best content for your topic. For example, even if you've already got a topic area, right? So you kind of have maybe these are your designated keywords, right? You can filter your competitors' content for the best articles related to that topic. So this is a useful shortcut, even if you've got your core keyword research done too. Even if you've done the whole thing, you know, start to finish the way that I described before, you can still use this method for figuring out topic ideas. We never want you to have writer's block. So let me show you what this did. So we're looking at WordStream's blog, and now I've filtered their best content related to LinkedIn, right? I typed in filter in there for LinkedIn. So we've got a few articles here. The complete LinkedIn advertising cheat sheet, how to write perfect LinkedIn connection requests, how to improve your LinkedIn profile as a recent college graduate. But the way that filter works is it filtered the content based on the keywords it ranked on. Then it ordered them by the number of SEO clicks on those keywords. So let me drill in here to sort of show you what I'm talking about. So when we click on the view keywords, it shows us all the keywords that have the word LinkedIn, LinkedIn in it that this article ranks on. And it orders them by the number of clicks we'd expect the page to get based on its position in the SERP. So when you see the estimated SEO clicks up here, let's see if I can, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, to be honest with you. But it's not the total amount of traffic the page gets, it's the total amount of traffic relevant to the keyword filter. Of course, if you clear the LinkedIn filter, it'll show you the total for the page, but you see how this works, and it's important because this is actually a really actionable tool, and we're going to use it again later when I show you how to improve your own existing content. But just to recap here, you can largely skip or certainly shortcut the crap out of your keyword research and like all the organization that entails with this trick. Just find a good competitor, right? The ones you admire grudgingly, and find maybe grudgingly, maybe not grudgingly. Find their best content and just do it better. Or if you've got an idea of where you want to start, you can use a quick filter, then build the content, measure and improve. And actually, that's my next slide. So this is sort of the outline for the whole process. You create the topics, write the articles, track the results, improve and repeat. And of course, that puts us at the point of where we are going to write the articles. So let's talk about writing the articles. Obviously, one way to produce your content is to write it all yourself. And I mean, we're in a COVID land right now. You might have time on your hands that you normally don't, or more time than money, or I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you might be the best person to write a lot of your content. A friend of mine, Larry Kim, he built a company that I referenced in here, WordStream, I used in his example and sold it for like $150 million a couple of years ago. His new company is Mobile Monkey, by the way. Anyway, I've always been impressed by the quality of the content WordStream produced and the depth of stuff Larry presented. So I asked him one time, I was like, dude, how do you scale your content creation? It's kind of a weird thing. Sounds like a nerdy thing for me to like, but literally, I was like, hey, Larry, dude, how do you scale your this is a direct quote from like actually me talking. I mean, if you're a nerd, you might actually talk like that as well. But I was like, dude, how do you scale your content creation? It's so good. And he was like, Mike, I actually spend 40 hours a week on it. It's the engine that drives all of our growth. And it's not exactly 100% of what I do as a founder, but it's like 80%. And so, to be honest with you, at that point, I was kind of crushed. I thought, dang, I really wanted him to tell me that he spent like 8 hours a week on it and like had some, scale thing that he had built, like a team and all that. But no, that is not the way it works. So being a thought leader can be a full-time thing for you, and that's okay. It actually can be a very successful thing, and it might very well be the best thing you can do with your time. But if it's not for you, there's plenty of options. Obviously, you can hire a writer, or you can hire an agency. And honestly, for a narrow task like content production, I don't think you'll find better bang for your buck than hiring an agency, particularly right now. Many of you may know that agencies have been pretty hard hit by the COVID cutbacks, so it's likely to be a pretty big win for you. They've obviously, that's just what they do, so it's hard to like, it's hard to improve upon the efficiency of something that somebody does day in, day out. But and don't forget about my previous hack to unlock internal sources of expertise by sort of building articles out of questions, sort of trickling those things, asking somebody, asking for a friend kind of thing, right? But if you don't need the service layer in there and you really want to scale the scale of like sort of near automation, you can crowdsource it. This is a thing. So here's the steps to that is you translate the topic of your article into a brief spec, select a writer, approve the content, and actually, this is a little bit of a shortcut thing because you don't essentially, obviously, profit. You have to approve the content, but there's sometimes like a loop there, right? You might want to have it improved. You may need to edit it. You're definitely going to have to edit it. Not necessarily, just maybe to fit your audience. And then you're probably going to have to add images, but there's some tricks to this anyway. Well, I'll walk you through it. The company I'm going to use is called Writer Access. The founder of the company is also a friend of mine, Byron White. So I am a little bit biased. I've actually never used another service, but I know there are competitors. Text Broker is one. But these guys do a pretty great job. I know kind of all about their internal work. They're based in Boston. So anyway, you go in here and you select the job and the writer or the writer rating. The length of the content, I set it to 1,500 words. You can set it to whatever you want, but importantly, I always make sure that I've got more words than whatever content I'm trying to outrank. It's just sort of a random rule of thumb. And then I write the spec. And in this case, this is sort of the spec that I would use for that single mothers thing. I basically take not just one of the pieces of content, but I take two of them and then I write the spec. It's literally like, this is an order for an article based on the same topic as the provided URLs. We're looking for a brand new article, but taking the same approach. Give the two examples, give them the target audience. I literally just copy and paste the spec for different URLs. So, and the results that come back are pretty typically decent. I mean, the results are great. I mean, they're not necessarily, it's kind of like the whole, if you're doing the content production yourself, the quality is going to be probably exceptionally high. And it sort of depends, if it's a thought leadery topic, then you might want to keep it for yourself. If it's just sort of a topic that you want to throw and see what sticks and then do the improvement cycle, I think that this is like the perfect way to do it, or a good way to do it at least. So anyway, on these services, you're going to pay about 6 to 7 cents per keyword. So the 1,500 word article is like $100. So if you want to produce 100 articles, it's going to be like $10,000. But you know, then it's done. And by the way, you don't need to have them write the entire article. This will certainly come into play when we start our improvement loop, but you could, you know, just have them answer a single question, and that single question could be the whole article, or it could just be part of it. The spec could be as simple as answer the question in 600 words. How do you apply for a Pell Grant for single mothers? And sort of one trick to this is that you can ask them for screenshots, which then you can use as images. So because otherwise you're sort of doing this search for like random images to put in there. And so I always make sure that I ask them for screenshots of whatever, right? I mean, typically when we're talking about stuff, something like this, how do you apply for? Screenshots would be perfect, but no matter what I'm doing, I'm like, just give me some screenshots and we'll see if it works out. This can be become a ridiculously streamlined and almost, you know, almost fully automated part of your workflow. Anyway, now it's time to track your results. But remember when I said you didn't need to worry about the long tail keywords? Well, now is when you do need to worry about the long tail keywords, because you'll see the needle moving on these long tail variations typically way before you see your core keyword move, maybe. So SpyFu has weekly rank tracking, and there's a bunch of rank tracking tools out there actually. We do a really good job of rolling keywords up and showing you what's happening at the keyword group level. I think that's probably one of our strong suits. And what I mean by the keyword group level is the long tail of your core keywords. It's just sort of built into our system. But I personally, for this workflow, I personally prefer to track things at the content level, like which piece of content is doing well, you know, what's it ranking on, etc. And the reason is that most of your content is going to suck. It's like some kind of law of nature. If you publish 100 articles, you're not going to wind up with like 50 that get 500 to 1,000 views and 20 that get 200-ish views and 20 that get 2,000-ish clicks. I'm sorry, clicks, not views. It's sort of a bell curve. Like, it doesn't work that way. You'll probably get like 5 that get 5 to 10,000 and 80 that get like 10, and like, you know, 15 somewhere in the middle. It's a power curve distribution, like income distribution or city populations, as opposed to like a bell curve, like height or foot speed. Larry Kim calls these, Larry Kim I was talking about earlier, actually sort of famously calls these unicorns and donkeys. I don't know if he's the only one, but you get these sort of unicorn, super great blockbuster pieces of content, and then you've got like a vast majority of your content that's kind of on this long tail of donkeydom. My favorite place to look, especially like the day after I publish something, or maybe the first week, is Google Search Console. I actually really like this tool. I use it a lot. I think everybody that's in SEO should probably be using it daily for just workflow. So I check out my new articles, but it's missing a few things that I want in my improvement loop. So mostly I use this as an early indicator of whether I've got a blockbuster unicorn piece, or if I'm making a tweak to something, if I like make a change scientifically, and I'm going to talk about some of those, then I want to check in on those pretty quickly. And Google Search Console is really great for its immediacy and kind of granularity. But if nothing else fails, it validates that what I'm seeing in SpyFu when I use my own, you know, sort of invention, what I'm seeing in SpyFu, it gives me like additional confidence in my next steps. And when you put them side by side, they match up pretty close. I just grabbed these really fast, like last night, and the dates here might not perfectly line up, but you see, it doesn't matter much. The order of priority is about right. So like on the right, you know, you have on the left, you have SpyFu sort of filtered down to the blog, and on the right, you have Google Search Console filtered down to the blog. And remember, there's lots of content on our blog, and this is just showing the top 7 to 8 results, and the overlap in these is really quite good. So So really, that's just a convenient validation that we can just use SpyFu to manage this next improvement cycle without worrying about missing something in the details.
Hey, Mike, I've got a couple questions that
Yeah,
came in.
let's do it.
Awesome. So a few minutes ago, I tried to find a good stopping point, but Hannah asked, how do you ensure quality of content coming from freelance writers, agencies, etc.?
I mean, you really just have to, you have to be the editor. You have to read the content and determine whether or not it's good. And if it's not, you can send it back for sure. And if you're dealing with an agency, they may switch out writers on you, and you don't necessarily know it. And so I think that the key there is to just say the quality is suffering, and they'll get the point. Or you have to switch. In the case of the platforms, there's a bit more transparency on who your writer is, and you don't just throw it out there. You don't have to just throw it out there to just like open bidding. It's not like Mechanical Turk or something. You can just use the platform to find yourself a writer and then just continue to work with that individual writer. They call it, I think it's like favorites or something like that,
Okay.
So.
Do you happen to have any recommendations for content writers or content writing in Toronto, Canada?
I have no idea. Absolutely
Okay.
none.
Okay. Jessica asked, do you provide writer access with the keywords for them to use?
There is, I believe that writer access, you would, yeah. Oh, right, that's correct. You do that. You put that in there in the spec. It's definitely part of the spec.
Okay.
100%.
And then Mildred, last question for right now. For this tracking metrics and SpyFu in general, can you get information for local results, or is it all national level?
It is national. Like basically we do searches on google.com naively, in a sense, like naively meaning we're running from like basically millions of different IPs and that are like sort of, I would call it geo neutral. But there's a ton of the keywords. Like we have, I would say 200, 300 million keywords that are like sort of localized, meaning you'll have like, I don't know, just like an obvious example would be like sushi restaurant in New York City or something like that. But like, I mean, hundreds of millions of variations going down to like the zip code level on those things. So those can be pretty helpful at approximating what your results are going to be on the local level, on sort of like the really hyper local level, if you will, because zip code's pretty darn local.
Okay, awesome. That's it for right now.
All right, cool. All right, so now I'm going to walk you through the improvement loop. That's where we're at in our process, and I'm going to give you a super efficient improvement loop that you can do right now with your existing content, but it sort of works its way into your content, your content production thing. I mean, you really should be kind of constantly doing this with all of your content. It's just that this is like the next step, right? And the improvement loop, I'll sort of draw attention to this at the end, is potentially the most important aspect of your content marketing, because once you sort of launch something, you kind of know what Google thinks about it, and you know whether or not you've got like a unicorn or a donkey, if you will, and so here's where you're going to put additional effort, put more chips on the right ones, right? Because it doesn't matter. Google thinks that your content sucks, whatever, fine. It is what it is. Focus on the ones that it does like and improve those ones, and those are going to give you like considerably big results, much bigger results than trying to improve stuff that isn't great. So step one, make sure your titles and your H1 match the top keyword. Okay, so the first step is to go through your top content from top to bottom, because who really cares about the stuff at the bottom? Just focus on the stuff at the top and work your way down. And what you do is make sure that the keyword you're targeting, in a lot of cases, the keyword you were targeting isn't the keyword that Google thinks is the most important for this page. So the question is whether you think it's worth fighting what Google thinks or whether you just want to roll with the flow. And basically what I'm going to recommend is that 95% of the time you roll with the flow, but it's possible that you know that the content that you have really should be ranking on a keyword, on a different keyword. And so you could try to fight against like sort of Google's, I guess, AI instinct, you know, and a lot of people do that. Oftentimes though, I just put something up and I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. It ranked on something that I didn't expect it to. That's cool. It's optimized for that. So that's why the title here is to make sure that the top keyword in the list is in your title and your H1. So here we've got WordStream's top articles. One of WordStream's top articles is getting a lot of traffic from Twitter advanced search. It's actually their biggest keyword, but it's sort of optimized for find your old tweets and see your first tweet. And you can see that they actually have how to find old tweets, find your old tweets. Basically, that's what they are ranking on that, getting a decent amount of traffic from it. But Twitter advanced search actually is getting them more clicks, even though they're in a much lower position. So what they should do is they should include that in the title. The title should become something like find your old tweets, Twitter advanced search to see your first tweet. This is something that I've done repeatedly, and it typically gets you about one, maybe two positions. And that one position doesn't sound like a ton, but remember, one position adds about 20 to 50% of the number of clicks you'll get on that search. Something that I would definitely try. So quickly go in and make those changes. Right now, for all of your content where your title doesn't match what Google thinks it should be, you should see results. So you'll see results on this stuff like in Google Search Console within a couple of days. Like it oftentimes happens the same day, and it sort of kind of goes up a bit and then stabilizes after about a week. I would keep track of the changes that you make, in a spreadsheet, so that if you need to roll them back, because sometimes, it's possible if we make this title change that they might drop on something like search old tweets or how to find old tweets. They might drop to the number 2, and it might not work out, but I think that it would. Typically it would, and it's like making this sort of an adjustment is a really low risk operation, because if you roll it back, if you need to roll it back for any reason, Google will roll it back pretty quickly too. But this sort of modifying your titles and your H1s is super effective and really useful to do pretty much to all your content. It's like if you're missing it, you're missing like kind of 20 to 50% of clicks. So the next thing to do, and this is regardless of whether the proper keyword was in the title or H1 or not, you can see here that this is an article on SEJ that actually does have the top keyword reverse images in the title. But no matter what, the next step is to take that top keyword and plug it into the filter by keyword thing, filter by keyword box up here. And oh, I have maybe the wrong screenshot for you. Okay, this one's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean, oh no, it's just a duplicate slide. Weird. Okay, well, here we go. So if you remember, these are the articles that rank on variants of reverse image search, right? Because this is how this thing works. So we typed in reverse image search. So in addition to the main one, there are 7 additional articles. So arguably, to some degree, these other articles are probably cannibalizing your main content. And because of the power curve effect, we're much better off leveraging that blockbuster unicorn article than doing anything else with these smaller ones. So combining content these days deserves a strong first look. Google really likes super exhaustive, mega authority content, stuff that has really high dwell time and really good engagement. But you've got so I think that combining these smaller articles potentially into this main one is a good idea. But you've got more than a few options. You could actually just remove old crappy content that's stealing some of your unicorn's thunder, or you could canonicalize an older version to a newer one using the canonical tag. If you aren't familiar with that, just look it up. You could de-optimize. In this case, it'd probably be a good idea to de-optimize the other piece of the other big piece of content for reverse image search, which is the 10 best image search engines. If you could de-optimize it for reverse image search, but it can be a little bit scary to mess with a real winner like that one. And that one is a pretty big winner. But no matter what, though, no matter what you do, you should cross-link. The smaller articles absolutely must link to the larger one. You can do it bidirectionally if you want to, but you must link the smaller one to the bigger one, unless you're deleting it or canonicalizing it. But you have to link. So if you're, do this thing today, these are super easy wins, and doing that cross-linking, it's hard to know exactly how the cross-linking stuff impacts stuff, because you're basically making changes in the entire site. But this type of thing is just best practice, and it's so easy and streamlined right here. All you have to do is just go look at those things and make sure that there's a link to the main one. Super simple. And so your next step is to expand. And the easiest way to do that is to ensure that you've answered all the questions you can about this topic. Take that top keyword, in our last example, reverse image search, and plug it into the keyword tool here, right? And remember, this is free to get like the top results, top 5 results, which is in this case perfectly great. I mean, can you reverse image search on Instagram on an Instagram photo? Can you reverse image search on Facebook? Can you reverse image search Tinder? What does Catfish use to reverse image search? These are beautiful questions, and those are just in the top 5. So those are like the free results for you to ensure that the article answers. And if it doesn't answer them, add them and make the article exhaustive. This is a super easy way to improve your existing content, particularly the stuff that's at the top of those results that's already doing well. Other ways you can expand, just improve the article in a different way, right? Go deeper or execute better on, sort of just do a better job with the article, maybe formatting, but just improve it. Obviously we talked about the questions, but you can also add some rich content. Google really likes videos inside the articles, so you have, this is pretty self-explanatory, but you can have multiple articles. You can add a single video like at the top, then you can also have sort of multiple videos as you go down, particularly a long form piece of content. You can have one for each section. Google loves that type of thing, and it will almost certainly improve your position. It's kind of expensive to produce videos for everyone, or it doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be an expensive video. You can add infographics, and something to note about these things is that videos and infographics don't have like the same constraints on duplicate content, right? So you can basically use these things, images and videos, or infographics and videos in multiple places. So you can just sort of bring that into your content, it'll be fine. So this is the outline of the whole process. Create topics, write the articles, track the results, improve and repeat. And of course, here we are at repeat, which means that we are basically, done. And so that's the process. And I think this is an important slide to remember, because creating the content really is just the first step, and typically doesn't capture anywhere near the potential. So there's a lot to be gained in that improvement loop, and so be sure not to overlook it. It's very important. Every position that you move up in the SERP gets you about 20 to 50% more traffic on those results. It sort of depends, basically, on I say 20 to 50%, and it's kind of weird, but it's predictable. Like on the first page, you basically get about 45% on the first page for every position you move up, and and about 20% on page 2 and beyond. So obsess over those incremental improvements, and that's my recommendation. So do we have any questions?
All right, let's see. Not yet. I'm sure there will be more coming in. I know, I think we got all of them answered before.
Oh, cool. That's great. I don't mind.
Yeah, but there were people thanking you. I'm just scrolling through. There was a lot of people thanking you for your feedback and your tips. Oh, we had a couple come in.
All right.
If you have a new site with low domain authority and your core keywords are highly competitive, where do you start?
You started further down. Make your core keywords less competitive. So start with a longer tail version of your core keyword.
Okay.
Right. Basically, and what I mean by that is something with a lower search volume. Like imagine if you have if you're targeting a keyword with like 10, a search volume of like 10 per month. If you create something, anything almost with that title, with the title of the article being that keyword, you're probably just going to rank on it, and because it's so low competition. So that's basically, you want to start someplace in between where you can straight up dominate by doing almost nothing, and something where you can sort of justify your costs. So if you want to calibrate yourself, calibrate the authority of your site, choose something really obscure, really long tail, and make an article about it, and make sure and validate for yourself that you can in fact rank, and then try something a little bit more difficult. Particularly if you're just starting out, it's easy to do. Just build some content for something that's really niche that nobody really answers, and solve that one.
Okay. And then Whitney said, if you have a new site with, oh, no. Jack had said, I'm trying to find the question list on SpyFu. Direct.
Yeah, so it's if you just do a search for a keyword, any kind of keyword. Let's see if I can find a good. Where was I on that? I'm trying to think of where I was. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So if you type in a keyword, so here I've typed in reverse image search. It will take you to a page called keyword overview, and the first list of keyword, the first list of words on there is similar words, and just to the right of it is questions. Here, let's do it live. You guys can see that, right?
Yep.
So right, so here we have the keyword overview, right? So you get all the stats, then you got similar keywords, and here you've got questions right here. And so then if we do view all, then we get that same view that I was talking about, and you can do things like filter right in there, just like that. Make sense?
Yep.
Oh, I normally have an offer for people, and I kind of forgot to put like a link together. I forget what I normally do, but how about we do something like 2 months free? If you just hop on, if you guys are interested in getting a subscription to SpyFu, you can hop on live chat and tell them Mike was on a webinar and he said that if I come on this live chat, that I will get SpyFu 2 months of SpyFu for free. So they kind of hate it when I do that. I'm gonna have to sort of scramble to tell my support people that that's the case, but I've done it more than once, so
They're used to it.
they'll totally believe it. I've never done it remotely though. Normally Danielle and Kim are basically within shouting distance of me when I'm at the office, but yeah, it'll work out.
Whatever works these days.
It works. It'll work.
Whitney said, if you have a new site with, oh gosh, why do I keep going back to that one? Mildred said, what are your thoughts on percentage of articles that should be for traffic, authoritative, and for conversion?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think it sort of depends on, I think you kind of want to like, I don't know. That one's one that really depends. You know, I think that probably the ones that you produce for conversion are probably the lowest. And I think that you want to track your metrics and see where you're starting out, right? Do you need traffic? Do you need authority? And you kind of maybe want to have like a theme. I would generally say that if you have a team, or even if you're sort of managing yourself, I would do these things potentially in bursts, you know? So this quarter, we're going to focus on authoritative content, and this quarter, we're going to focus on traffic. That might work for you. I kind of think that these are somewhat evenly split, but I think that the stuff that's at the bottom of your funnel, okay, yeah, actually, if you think about it like that, it's probably like at the end of the day, everything is the number of authoritative pieces that you produce is going to be relatively small, but those are going to be high quality and probably deep, like lots of content. Like you're going to spend maybe potentially like somewhere between like a week and a month building it. It's going to spend like somewhere between 2 days and a month building it. It might take a long time because it's really good content. And so you're not going to produce a whole bunch of those, but in terms of the time that you spend on them, it might be relatively evenly split. And so the most common pieces of content that you're going to create are actually traffic-based ones. And those are actually relatively easy. It's like your top list content, you know, top 10 basically image search sites is the, you know, a lot of these places, the top content in terms of traffic is actually that stuff that is, that's just, you know, kind of not really, you know, very far forward on your brain. Further back, you know, like closer to the lizard part.
Okay. Let's see the next one. We had a few more come in. Scott asked, is it best to place all your new content articles in one specific area on your website? Examples, blog, news or resources area, or is it more effective for SEO to place this content in different areas on your website, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters at all. Obviously, you know, the URL scheme matters to some degree, but I would say that you want to organize the stuff for user experience more than anything, right? So if you want to put your, you know, some of your converting content, you know, might be on a completely different set of URLs or a path than your blog content.
Okay. Chris asked, when competing in the mortgage space in Canada with the big 5 banks, is it realistic to compete on keyword content, or would it be better to create newsjacking or speed to market articles?
Right. So newsjacking is a great trick for sort of generating traffic. It's I had like at the end of this presentation here, I've got a whole bunch of stuff on newsjacking and evergreen content in ways that you can produce like real-time content. And you basically want to have a mix of that stuff, right? Because you know the evergreen content pays off over time. And the ideas are sort of more keyword based, but it also is a little bit easier. It's easier to produce those in like a content calendar. The other ones you sort of have to be like waiting, or you sort of look ahead and know what's going to happen because there's an event that like a Super Bowl or you know an earnings release or something that's going to happen at some point. So I think that a mix, right? And the way that I said that is that a 4-to-1 mix ultimately seems to be like the right mix where you have, if you want to just break even on your content production, because you're going to get, a lot of views on your sort of timely newsjacking articles. So that's kind of my approach to that.
Okay.
Oh, and if you're having a trouble, competing with those high authority sites, I'd say that the way to do it is to just, right, like move your way down, focus on like a longer tail variant, something maybe more local than they're willing to go, on your keyword targeting.
Okay, and then Chris had also asked, what is the name of the copywriting service in the US? And do you happen to know the cost per article?
Yeah, it's writer access, and I believe you don't necessarily need to pay. The cost per article is, if you have a 1,000-word article, it'll cost you about $60. So it's about
Okay.
six or 7 cents per. You can get it as low as like 1 or 2 cents. The quality isn't very high, so I recommend, if you want like quality like that is written by like somebody that's really good and hard to perceive between, I don't know, my level of English and sort of intellect. Apparently, I'm probably worth about 6 or 7 cents.
Okay, Scott said, with the content you develop through Writer's Access, are you identifying yourself as the author when you publish, like a byline author, or identifying another person as the author?
You can identify it as yourself if you like.
Okay. And then Charles asked, any resource for writing a content spec?
I don't have one, but actually, Writer Access, I know, actually publishes a bunch of content on that stuff. They go into style guides and, just sort of tone and all kinds of, all kinds of depth on that, and that's part of actually their content marketing.
Okay, awesome. Well, that is it for now. I know, let me see here. Do you have an email at all that we would be able to shoot over any other questions? Otherwise, we can use our Main Street email.
Yeah, you can email me at mike@spyfu.com if you like.
Okay, perfect. So if anybody has any other questions, shoot over emails there. Any questions for Main Street ROI, you can send them to info@mainstreetroi.com. But other than that, thank you all so much for joining today's webinar, and thank you, Mike, for all this information. As a reminder, we will be sending out the replay video and PDF of the slides, so look out for that in the next 24 hours. We hope to see you next month for our next Master Your Marketing presentation. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mike.
Awesome, thanks. It was a great time.
Yeah.